A change in city council leadership could indicate a rough road ahead for the city's mayor. City Hall security shifts its attention from concealed handguns to prohibited pocket knives. Hurricane season kicks off amid federal cuts to weather forecasters. Black bears are targeted in a December hunt, and bust out the doubloons. The governor declares gold and silver legal currency in the state of Florida. Here to talk about all that and more, I am joined by Mike Mendenhall, city government reporter and associate editor of Jacksonville Today. Welcome back to the program. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Thank you, Ann. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. We're also joined by Sylvia Perry, editor of the Jacksonville Free Press. Good morning.
Good morning.
Obi Umunna, attorney and political consultant. Good morning, Obi.
Thank you for having me.
And Jack Webb, attorney and former city council president.
Thanks for having me back, Ann.
It's great to have you. Obi, let's start with a story that broke last night. You actually brought to my attention, reported by our colleague at Action News Jax, Jake Stofan, that the Office of General Counsel is now advising the sheriff not to enforce a state and local law.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty open and shut cut on the legal side, but to give more explanation, basically, City Council passed a law basically following the state law that you can't be in the state illegally, and then the local law actually added a few more kind of things to it as far as jail time and as well if you were here. What has happened is the state law and the federal law that the state law was modeled after are both under an injunction, and an injunction is basically a legal way to say, stop right now until we come to a decision. So while this is under injunction, the general counsel basically send out advisory to the JSO to not pursue this, because it could add to more legal trouble in the long run if you do something under an injunction.
So obviously this was controversial, at the state level, controversial at the local level. But this, I think, would suggest it's going to add another layer of political complication, because you have the Office of General Counsel, the city's top attorney, advising the city's top law enforcement officer not to enforce a law. It has already generated some pushback from members of city council. And it's not really resolved even at the state level. The attorney general has also suggested to local law enforcement that they ignore the injunction in some ways.
Correct. So everybody is kind of deciding what they want to do with this injunction. The normal legal practice is, when you have an injunction, is to wait until the injunction is solved, and then you go forward to see what exactly what's happening. I think this has become more political. I think that city council is not really concerned. The city, and I don't want to say city council in general, because there's certain city council members that are pushing this, are not concerned with the legal ramifications of this, where the general counsel, that is their job, is to make sure the city is protected legally.
But so they're saying this could invite legal action. But there has been, Jack, the attorney general has challenged this injunction and essentially said to local law enforcement, this doesn't necessarily apply to you. And have presented that argument to the judge in the case, saying, the people who were challenging the legality of this law should have named each and every law enforcement agency in the state if they wanted it to apply to each and every law enforcement agency in this state.
I get what they're arguing, but to the point, maybe to the prior point, again, the general counsel's office has opined that, hey, given the uncertain state of the law at this point, that it's wise to be exercise caution in enforcing this. Why buy additional litigation? And which is what the administration was warning against in the first place when the council passed this ordinance that mirrored the state. To your point that you were making before as well, the politics are real. I mean, just look at the new incoming leadership at the city council, and the way, the Elizabeth Anderson vote, and the way the votes are stacking up, and the very, very stark, deep divide that exists on the council right now. And again, the ongoing hostility, the war of words between council leadership and the general counsel's office. This is just another front in that war.
I mean, we'll be getting more into the leadership and kind of what that says, but in terms of the political side of this request, Mike, the new incoming council president requested this opinion from the Office of General Counsel, and then kind of immediately said this opinion is unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, it was Kevin, and it was incoming council president Kevin Carrico who actually, who authored this bill as well. And so, I think to Jack's point, there was no surprise that
he authored the immigration bill.
Yes,
the one that,
he
okay.
authored the immigration bill,
Sure.
and there was no surprise that there was an injunction issued. Issued. I think that the general counsel warned the city council about this when they were debating the bill, debating the local immigration bill, that this could be a possibility. And it definitely, had a party line vote. It was interesting because the bill itself, the local immigration bill itself, was actually tied to funding for mobile fingerprint scanners that that JSO could use out in the field to help with immigration enforcement. And so that's that was and there was a lot of concern that JSO wasn't going to get resources they need if the bill didn't pass. So that was one of the ways that politically that they were able to get the bill through. And because there were definitely folks that were nervous about the enforcement. And this bill and the local immigration law also it tacks on imprisonment for folks that are found found in Jacksonville, in Duval County, undocumented. It's up to 60 days for a second offense. So I mean, so it kind of it added some local teeth to it, which this injunction clearly is going to halt, at least for the time being.
Sylvia, in terms of how this impacts law enforcement, I know that in their report, Action News reached out to the sheriff, and he basically said, we will always enforce federal, state, and local law, which I'm not sure really addressed the question of what to do if the Office of General Counsel is telling you not to enforce a law that is a state, local, and federal law. It is going to add a layer of politics to the world of law enforcement.
Absolutely. And we're all in a state of ambiguity right now when it comes to that. I mean, if you look at it from the federal, state, and national level, what's been right and separated from what's legal is not a fine line. And we are in Florida. So I'm pretty sure that given the where we are going with the immigration issue, if that's what they want, that's what's going to happen. Previous topics have included ICE going into schools, et cetera. Is that right? No. But that's what they want to do. So.
Yeah, we're all becoming kind of dashboard constitutional lawyers,
in
right?
a police state, correct.
Yeah. Well, I do want to kind of move on to the issue of council leadership. And Jack, you sort of, obviously your former city council president, you alluded to the fact that there is, some brewing disputes between the mayor and the city council, and certainly with the new leadership. The mayor got along fairly well with the last city council president, Randy White. The new leadership is Kevin Carrico. Nick Howland is the, do they still call it is it a pro tem or is it a VP?
It's VP.
VP, okay. So those two have been, pretty strong opponents of the mayor on a lot of fronts. But you talked about this divide, Jack, and the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of these two. Matt Carlucci was the only no vote against the president, Carrico, and Howland got 18-0. There was one person absent.
I did that. I saw that. Kevin Carrico was 17-1. Michael Boylan was absent. Wedding anniversary, as I understand. Matt Carlucci voted against Kevin. But I think the more and then Nick Howland took it 18-0. I mean,
So
let's
can
face
we
it.
can we not say that looks like near unanimous support for these two?
Well, yeah, as far as council leadership goes, but it's going to be unanimous. I mean, excuse me, it's going to be resolved prior. You're not going to have aggressive debate, and this kind of papers over or cements over or papers over, like whatever, hides a lot of fault lines that exist within the council. I mean, because you get your commitments nailed down, weeks and months in advance. So again, all of the crying is done outside of council chambers, provided this goes down. What I found interesting was that Michael Boylan introduced that legislation that would change the manner in which his leadership is selected. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. I think the divide, though, really, I think it's the library board vote. We can get into that as well. But, I mean, again, the way that went down, it was Republican versus Democrat. I mean, really kind of right down the line with a couple of exceptions. Jacoby Pittman voted against Elizabeth Anderson. But and even within the Republican faction, there seems to be like Boylan and Carlucci just seem to be these moderates who don't have a home in the current Republican whatever you want to call it, Republican Party, Republican leadership on the city council. So it'll be interesting to see. I think everyone's going to miss Randy White, to be honest with you.
What are your thoughts, Mike? I mean, you're going to be covering a lot of this in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, I am, and you're already starting to see some of those divisions in action. There was a special committee on the future of downtown yesterday, and Matt Carlucci, who Jack mentioned, voted against Kevin Carrico. There was some tension visible tension between Carrico and Matt Carlucci, as Carlucci was trying to provide a speaker more time, trying to give him some of his time, and Kevin Carrico just completely denied it. And then there was some raised voices. I wouldn't call it shouting, but raised voices. So you can feel that tension. And as far as the unanimous vote goes too, a lot of these city council members who may have actually personally opposed Carrico's ascendance to presidency, they also have committee assignments to think about, because that city council
Exactly
president
right.
puts out committee assignments. And if you want to get on a good committee, like shouldn't say a good committee, a committee with more authority or more weight, like finance or rules committee, you need to show that you're supportive of the general direction. And so that, I mean, I don't know that for sure, but that could have been a factor in some of the some folks' votes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you're gonna really know where people stand based on their committee assignments.
Exactly.
You're
right.
gonna know who is in the good group or in the not so good group after the city.
Who's in the basement?
Yeah, in the city council assignments. And so, I agree with everyone here about the vote. The public vote is very different than what is happening behind the scenes, but we'll see. Committee assignments will really give you the true test.
And can there be people who just don't land on any committee at all?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
rare, but
It's very
Right.
rare.
it's rare. I think I'm trying to remember. I think after the JEA stuff, I believe some people were not assigned to
Yeah,
committees.
I
It's rare though,
Yeah.
right?
It's very rare.
So usually you get something, but maybe not choice appointments or as many committee assignments as you'd like.
You'll get the fifth spot on housing and whatever, something, because the gems are always in people's minds. Finance. Everyone wants finance and rules. I mean, people never realized that rules is as powerful as it is, but rules has become very relevant. So the two big committees are the rules committee and the finance committee.
And I guess, Sylvia, the real opposition happening off scene, does, I guess, make sense when you have these near unanimous votes.
Absolutely.
For leadership.
As Jack shared, that the majority of the book and the crux of the politicking goes behind the scene and happens way before, when people leverage their support.
Right. So this first move by the city council president introducing a bill you alluded to, and I do want to get into that, because that could really change the shape and the future of downtown. For the last several months, a committee that was created by former city council president Ron Salem has been looking at the future of downtown. It's a special committee on the future of downtown, I think is its name, and Kevin Carrico led that. So now is some time for some legislation to come out of that. Can you talk a little bit about what is happening legislatively?
Yeah, Kevin Carrico filed a bill that would actually that would kind of restructure how the Downtown Investment Authority CEO is approved. The bill does a few other things too, but really that's kind of the biggest piece of this is traditionally the Downtown Investment Authority, which handles all private incentive deals for real estate developers that are happening in the downtown core. They will select their CEO. When the current CEO, Lori Boyer, was hired in 2019, there was a panel that was scored. It was all done with the appointed DIA board. That DIA board is appointed by the mayor. So, but instead, what this bill would do was it would the board would still approve it, but then the city council would have to confirm the CEO. Which there's some concern amongst some people on city council. Jimmy Peluso, who actually represents downtown, talked about this during the meeting yesterday. He's concerned that confirmation could politicize the position.
Sure, and
So-
it's not just confirmation, right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
It's removal.
it's removal as well, and that's another big issue, is because right now the DIA is searching for their next CEO.
Mhm.
Lori Boyer is going to be retiring here in a few weeks. She's, like I said earlier, she's led the Downtown Investment Authority since 2019, and if this bill passes, and it's been filed as an emergency, if this bill passes, It could, if the timing lines up, give the city council the opportunity to confirm whoever that DIA board picks.
That next
Which,
incoming
yeah,
DIA. Mhm.
yep, and then that DIA CEO works with the board to really establish development policy for downtown. Who to, like what type of incentives to offer private developers, what should be the most important area of concentration of development. I mean, we saw Lori Boyer, her big signature issues were riverfront parks, historic preservation of some of these buildings. She created an entire incentive package specifically to help developers develop uh, historic properties that would not be otherwise financially feasible to
Mhm.
do. So
Mhm.
so having that authority, and typically when the DIA board files a bill with city council to get one of these incentive deals approved, it would go through the mayor's budget review committee process, which is made up of members of the mayor's administration. This completely removes the mayor's administration from that process. The DIA board would take their legislation straight to city council.
Sylvia, wasn't the idea behind this DIA, theoretically to put a layer between politics, legislators, and the development needs of downtown?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you get to the appointed process, that takes it all back.
Yeah.
Total retraction.
So, I mean, what are the implications of having more politics, or perhaps not more politics? I mean, it's just legislators. Jack, you tell us. Does that invoke more politics?
Oh, absolutely. Couple points. Number one, Kevin Carrico is a South Side district rep, and so his immersion and interest in downtown issues is commendable, if not really interesting. That said, the DIA was correct, and I think, Mike, you're right. We were speaking before. I think that we talked a lot about the DIA and kind of streamlining the whole downtown development process during the Payton administration. But I don't know if we got the legislation through. It might have been done under the Alvin Brown's administration. But in any event, the whole point was to remove the politics as much as you can, because politics are part of any human endeavor. You get three humans in a room, it's going to turn into politics. It's just the way it is. It's the human condition. But again, to streamline it I remember having conversations with developers at the time. They wanted to get it out of the grasp of council because it's like 19 votes. It's herding cats.
Wow.
It's herding cats.
It is.
It is. And so good luck to you. Good luck to you. I think, as we were talking before we went on the air, there might be some tweaks to the structure of the DIA that does make sense. The mayor's budget review committee, the MBRC, maybe that does need to be tweaked. But let the DIA do the contract. They have their board, appoint their CEO. Let's move on. You negotiate your deals, and bring it back to the council, right? And let them debate it. They can cut it up. They can throw it back or whatever. But it will, as proposed. It's my estimation that it will slow down things. And what's concerning to me as well is that the fact that it's been introduced as a one-cycle emergency,
Mhm.
I think precludes robust discussion and input as to the merits of this bill, and limits the amount of policy discussion that occur prior to the council acting on this legislation.
I want to take a call, if we can, from City Council member Matt Carlucci, who I believe wants to weigh in on this proposed change to DIA. Good morning, Council member.
Hey, good morning, and good morning to your guests. How are y'all doing this morning?
We're
Morning.
great. Go ahead. What is your thoughts about this?
I think former council member Jack Webb just summed them up about better than I possibly could, if you want to know the truth. My thoughts are simply that my biggest concern, there's no emergency. The reason that they want the emergency, they being the council leadership and the chair, is because the DIA is supposed to make an appointment of the new CEO in 20 days, and they want this bill pushed ahead of that, so we would have confirmation ability and firing ability of the incoming CEO. If I'm a applicant for CEO and I know this kind of stuff's going on, I'm going to start giving second thoughts, because I don't want to get caught up in politics. I want to report to a board. I want to be appointed to a board that's non-political. And what this is doing somewhat is minimizing the DIA board's role, the Downtown Investment Authority's board role. And that was the whole intent. was to keep the independence of the Downtown Investment Authority when it was created and to keep the politics out.
I've got to ask you a quick question, not exactly on this topic, but related, because I was going to raise it as a discussion point, which has to do with the other Carlucci on the city council, who it seems is often falling on the other side of these issues, including being a co-sponsor of this piece of legislation. I'm just kind of curious about the family dynamic there.
There is no family dynamic. He sticks to his knitting and I stick to mine. Joseph, though, is coming along very well as I observe him. A couple of the bills I didn't even know about until the other day, so that'll tell you the family dynamics. We don't talk about politics in our family. We've been listening to that bull stuff for a long time. My wife is not has a low tolerance for the family getting involved in talking on politics, particularly when we get together for family stuff. So, there's no dynamics there. Look, I respect Joseph for whatever he does. He's growing, he's learning, and he's doing a heck of a good job. And I think he's turning a real good corner from my observations. And I got to tell you, he's got some insights that I have found very interesting. And perhaps as this whole thing plays out, he could play a very big role in shaping this thing the way it needs to be shaped. But I don't have any reason to believe that. But as somebody who's known my son for 30 some odd years and he's watched me, he's doing some things. He's growing into the job very well. So, there's no dynamics there. I love my boy unconditionally, and that's the way it's supposed to be in family, right?
That's right. And I guess some other families could take some guidance from yours about avoiding politics. I want to take a call from Linda in Mandarin. Good morning, Linda. Go ahead.
Good morning. I just found out about the emergency, but I guess they found out from President Trump that, invoking emergency can do wonders, that you can get things done under an emergency basis that should be regular legislation. But what I wanted to address is the fact that in having former city council people and city council people on the line, this city council seems to have a lot of performative stances. I really couldn't put my finger on much of the legislation that they're doing besides national immigration standards and, invoking emergency to over DIA. They have a role, of course, but I don't know how they are doing in terms of neighborhood legislation, talking about our revenue we need to raise, the deficit in our budget, our pension. Every time I turn around, they're dragging people out of the chamber who are trying to speak. It just seems like it's ugly time in political life for citizens just wanting to know, what is my legislator? 19 people is like herding cats, and they seem to be going in 19 different directions most days, except when they can vote for leadership, because they know the Mean Boys Club is coming and they better vote yes. Thank you, guys. Have a great Friday.
Thanks, Lindy. Obi.
I think that's an astute comment of what we're seeing here. And I do think, though, there is an opportunity for citizens to push back a little bit. Obviously, there are things happening in the community, like, road, people getting run over and things that are perfect items for city council people to be working on, and they're not working on those issues. And so, I think the people are, like Linda, are also upset that they want their local government to be local, right? They don't want their local government to be the federal government. They want their local government to care about local stuff and fix local problems. And we're seeing that is not happening with this city council. And again, I don't want to say all city council members, but certain city council members are working on things that the people that really live in the community want them to work on their issues.
We've got a call from Peter on the south side. Good morning, Peter. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. I appreciate the time. My concern is that the Downtown Investment Authority makes decisions that are long-term, and investors need the security, I guess, of a long-term commitment, whereas if we leave it up to the council, then every 2 or 4 years they can change things, and I'm not sure that that's good policy for downtown.
It's a good observation, Peter. And Sylvia, clearly, for a lot of areas of the world right now, for investors or people who are thinking long term, there is a lot of uncertainty. But the DIA, was supposed to be somewhat of a moderating factor for a change in administration, for instance, or turnover at the city council level.
Correct, correct. And again, you see where we are. Downtown development has been a subject that has been the bane of Jacksonville's existence for decades, decades. And while we may see structural and aesthetic improvements, the crux of the matter is that there's still not a massive amount of people going down there. It's not that with the advent of COVID, businesses moved out, they're not moving in. And it's a big job.
Yeah.
It's a big job, and politics does not have any business in it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Mike Mendenhall, Jack Webb, Obi Umunna, and Sylvia Perry about the week's big headlines. And we welcome you to join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also reach out on social media at FCC On Air. And if you want to watch us, you can check out our live stream on Facebook or the First Coast Connect YouTube channel. Another council-related story had to do this week with security. And I know that we've got a call or two holding on that. So I'm just going to start off with a quick comment here from Wells Todd. Good morning, Wells. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann, and good morning to your guests. I was at Tuesday night's city council meeting, and I need to say that the attack and assault on 3 citizens was appalling. And I'm saying that because there's an ongoing attempt by the city council to stifle citizens' right to free speech and expression. They want to stifle discussion about the $1 billion jail they want to build, which will probably be overrun and cost more than $1 billion. They want to stifle discussion about the medical examiner's office and morgue that's being built in the African-American community of Brentwood. They want to stifle discussion about a resolution they passed, which they shouldn't have passed because it's a national issue on the genocidal Zionist government of Israel. And people at Tuesday night's meeting, there were a lot of people there who had never been to a city council meeting, but they were outraged at the fact that people could not applaud, not unless the city council agreed to it. But this is the city council, and the conservative right wing have control over the council, and the people in this town must stand up for their rights. And I think the felony charge against that young man who they say had a knife, I have no idea if he had a knife or not. I know him, and that charge must be dropped. And they want to stifle discussion about the Deportation Act here.
Yeah.
And so there are many things that the city council should be doing, but their main focus is approving contracts and developing.
Wells, thank you for thanks for your comments. I do kind of want to open that up because, he mentioned a couple of things. We should just clarify. There were 3 people that were arrested at the city council meeting. The feed itself was shut down. So there's some videos that were taken of what occurred. There was an interchange between law enforcement there and one man who was trying to film, I think, and he ended up getting taken down. He did have a knife on him, according to the photo that the police released.
Yeah, and there are a lot of issues involved in all of this. Number one was the clearing of the council. All right, Randy White, former president or current president Randy White, is a reasonable guy. All right, so is he enforcing the council rules with regards to appropriate behavior in the council chambers? Yes. Now, trust me, I've been there before where you've had to, you got contentious matters and you get people who are fired up and they have to respect the rules of the council. As Mayor Deegan said, it's all about civil discourse. You can't. So I wasn't there. I don't know, but I would be certain that President White probably informed the crowd these are the rules. If need be, I will have people removed for failure to abide by these rules. Now, that said, okay, what happened? Well, it looked like a Donnybrook, a melee, and the judge basically said there's no probable cause for the charge of felony resisting with violence. And I think we've all seen the video, and it's problematic. So you've got You got a council control issue. I don't know if they're stifling debate on certain issues. I don't know what they were applauding. But that said, it quickly devolved into something that was ugly and reflected perhaps inadequate training on the part of JSO.
Well, I think, Sylvia, this is an incident that is a reminder for everyone of kind of how low the bar can be for resisting arrest. Because in this case, there was, maybe a kind of attempt to brush off, according to the video, an officer grabbing this gentleman, and that was kind of immediately seen as a form of resistance, and he was
Right.
taken down. So, law enforcement is allowed under the law to respond to what they see as a resisting subject with
Well,
increased force.
resisting and being overzealous is a fine line. And for someone to be arrested just because they're filming, and that's an obstruction of justice, that is going a little bit too far.
Hmm.
Now, the whole knife, the man didn't pull the knife. That was a part of his personal person. That wasn't even a part of the issue. I mean, I might have a pocket bag full of cocaine, but that's not why I'm here,
Hmm.
So it turns one irrelevant issue into a bigger one.
Yeah.
And we're still not talking about, as our caller said before, the issues that are at hand and while we're protesting here in Jacksonville.
Got a call from Ed near NAS Jax. Good morning, Ed. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the conversation about the rules on the city council meetings. And my question is, if a child in Duval County Elementary School or junior high or high school would be caught with the exact same folding knife in their backpack, just walking around, not even creating any ruckus or protesting or anything, they would be arrested and and sent to the police station, and they would be in big trouble. So I'm trying to figure out how adults should be treated in a lighter manner. Maybe there's a reason for that, but maybe somebody can explain it. The city councilman, the ex-city councilman there, maybe can tell us a little bit about that.
Thanks, Ed. I mean, he's saying, a student would be arrested for this. The charge, we'll see if the state attorney chooses to file these resisting with violence charges. That was what the judge said he didn't think there was probable cause for. But of course, it's up to the state attorney to decide whether to formally charge.
I mean,
Go ahead, Obi.
I think the real difference is simple. I mean, obviously, you can take a gun into city council, and there was a lot of argument. You just can't take it into the meeting, right? And I think the real problem is
You
that
can take a gun into City Hall.
into city hall,
Yeah.
you just can't take it into a city meeting, right? And I think like why it's being treated as less is if you can take a gun, you could definitely take in a pocket knife. The problem was it shouldn't have been on this person when he was in the city meeting, right? And that was what the real issue was. It looked like it was one of those kind of like credit card things that he may not even realize he had it on him, But regardless, he had it on him, and wasn't allowed in the meeting. But it's being treated that way because this is not a school where you're not allowed to have weapons or anything like that.
Well,
So,
to that point, though, I mean, you got to clean your pockets when you're going into City Hall. You're going through the metal detector, right? So you're taking everything out of your pockets, taking your jacket off. So you're being screened. So I doubt.
But those credit card knives do fit in a wallet. So I guess if you had it in your wallet and didn't sort of
Okay.
empty your wallet,
but your wallet does get run through the.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not solely on him. The screening should have also found it.
And children aren't allowed to own any weapons of any
Exactly.
Right.
any form.
We've got a call from,
Point.
let's see, Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning to y'all, too. Just wanted to put this in context because I was at the meeting, too. There was no disturbance at all in the back of the city council chamber. When this occurred, they were just reading the names of people who chose not to speak and moving on to bills they were considering. So there wasn't even likely to be any disturbance moving forward unless they had a strong opinion on the garbage fee. And also, let me say one other thing, because I was there. The excessive force was truly appalling. That young man was picked up and thrown to the floor. I was in the very front of the chamber. This occurred in the very back. And the thud of his body hitting the floor was very audible. And last, let me add that, I'm very concerned that that knife got past security. I do not know how that happened, and that makes us all question the safety of this city council meetings.
Wow.
Yeah. Just briefly, Mike, because I do want to move on.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of walk through for folks that don't know how security works. If you just give me a couple seconds, it just so essentially there's two security points at City Hall on City Council nights. There's the main security point that actually has an X-ray machine that X-rays your bags and all the pocket contents of your pockets, as well as the magnetometers. On City Council nights, because of the state law that was passed in 2023, they put on a second layer of security, which is a wand, and then they also search your bags and your pockets. But to everyone's point, if that wasn't a credit card knife and it was in the wallet, I mean, it may not have been picked up. And if he just had it in the rotunda itself, according to state law, and he's not actually in the meeting room, he would have been legal. So going through that first checkpoint, even if they saw it, they technically would need to let him in. But if you were to go into the city council chambers, then that's where it should have been caught. But because of the current procedure and the style of knife, it's likely that it may not have been caught on that second.
Yeah. I do want to move on, step out of City Hall for a minute and talk about the weather, because on Sunday, hurricane season is starting. This is happening as Florida and other states are also dealing with agencies that are experiencing some major cuts, whether it's FEMA or NOAA. We actually had retiring meteorologist Tim Deegan on earlier this week, and I asked him about the impact of DOGE cuts, particularly on National Weather Service balloons. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It's my opinion that from 2000 up until recently, they've been on a super tight, undermanned position as it was. So now that there's even less people there, that's a big concern. But let me go quickly to the weather balloon. 80% of the data that goes into any model you're using comes from the weather balloons. And it's now been tracked by the relatively conservative Wall Street Journal that since April, at the very least, and this is just the United States, there's been a 15% decrease in soundings. I don't see how that's not going to hurt the long-term models.
So that's something that, we're all going to be paying attention to, because obviously, hurricane season requires on this sort of grid of weather balloons that go up and help us determine the forecast as it's coming down. We also rely on our local weather people to help us with that prediction. But Mike, one thing that, is the concern is, Florida's generally kind of prepared for these things, but there are other storms. I think we all last night probably got some of the rumblings through some areas really hard hit in, I think, Fruit Cove and Clay County and such. So there's storms that are of great consequence that aren't necessarily huge hurricanes.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, that even though the state of Florida is relatively well prepared, we still our state government still relies on that federal assistance, but particularly FEMA. There's been a lot of cuts as well to FEMA in addition to NOAA. And I was reading an article. I believe it was in the New York Times or the Wall Street or Washington Post, one of those two, that was quoted somebody from Sanibel Island who said that the debris removal process during a hurricane in 2022 done by FEMA was vital for restarting that person's business. So I mean, so that that in itself is very problematic and could have an impact. And I'd be curious to know too. A lot of those local meteorologists rely on that federally gathered data. So we have great local meteorologists here, but
if they don't have that info coming in,
exactly,
yeah, it could have impacts. Obi,
Yeah, I mean, first, very thankful to Tim Deegan and his service to our community. I think that is important. He's retiring this week, and I think he's done an amazing job. I think the real issue will especially for Floridians, will be tornadoes, storms that are subtly popping up. Hurricanes, we have a little bit of opportunity to track longer, but a tornado or something that's popping up all of a sudden, if you don't have the manpower to put the warnings out, we've seen some of this in some other states where they haven't had the warning out in time because of lack of manpower or things being passed, people are going to be in harm's way. So hopefully, there's some opportunities to get some of the funding back or get some of this put some more focus on this, because sudden storms, sudden things that happen are going to be the things that are usually being picked up by these weather balloons a lot sooner and giving people warning.
FEMA, Sylvia, is another big, case, not just the NOAA cuts, but the New York Times recently reported that, during that kind of worst case year when in 2017 we had Harvey, Irma,
bad.
Maria. We had terrible California wildfires. And that was like a time when FEMA actually came close to running out of staff just because they were overwhelmed by the amount of disasters they were dealing with. And then at that point, they had 6,500 trained staffers, full-time staffers. They currently have less than 2,000. And so, the question of readiness is something that is the kind of thing that we'll know, I guess, when a disaster strikes.
Absolutely. I was thinking to myself, it's easy for someone, sitting at a big chair in the sky or from South Africa, not dealing with a city surrounded by 7 bridges, to slash cuts and decide what's right and what's wrong and who needs what. But we live in an area that is we're in peril of hurricanes each and every year. Each and every year, Florida has a chance to be decimated. We fight everything from our housing, insurance costs on up, and it all starts with being prepared. So,
Jack, because we're Florida, though, we may be somewhat better prepared than other states when it comes to, I mean, obviously, we know disaster, we know emergency response, we know preparedness a lot better than people in a lot of other states.
Yeah, we're 70 miles wide and we're surrounded by water on 3 sides. How's that going to work out for you, right? That said, it's interesting. I'm all about budget efficiencies and, eliminating waste. But it seems to me what we're doing at the federal government level is identifying what we do well and cutting that as well. Right, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. As far as it's interesting though. I've seen I'm a human barometer, so I kind of amateur meteorologist. But that said, I've kind of seen a degradation in the quality of NWS and NOAA over the last few years. And when I'm tracking weather systems, hurricanes, not tornadoes, because obviously that's a different animal. But when I'm tracking that stuff, we got a storm coming through. I rely upon like weathertiger.com, and they rely, they're an aggregator of different projections, and they rely heavily upon the European models, the European projections for whatever reason. And the European projections, in my estimation, my review, this is totally anecdotal, but it's more accurate than what we're getting domestically. So I don't know what that means, but again, I go back to my earlier point. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're endangering lives.
Yeah.
First it was the air traffic controllers.
Yep.
Now it's FEMA. It's not until people are impacted that they truly seem to care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sylvia Perry, Obi Umunna, Jack Webb, Mike Mendenhall, thank you so much for being here today. It's great to talk to you as always.
Thanks so much, Ann. Appreciate it.
All right. Up
God bless
next.
the Bears.
Yeah. All right. Up next, building a better community, one neighborhood at a time.
DuPont Counseling Group is a team of therapists, psychiatrists, and counselors available to help with life's mental health challenges. Everyone needs help sometimes. More information can be found at jacksonvillecounseling.org. Havana Jack's Cafe, serving Jacksonville for over 30 years with traditional Creole Cuban food made with fresh ingredients. Offering dine-in, carry-out, delivery, and catering. Menu and ordering at havanajacks.com.
On the next Fresh Air, David Leitch on performing and directing dangerous and wild movie stunts. He was a stunt double for Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Keanu Reeves. Leitch produced and directed the action comedy film The Fall Guy, which starred Ryan Gosling as a stuntman who has to perform stunts in real life in order to save his life. Join us.
Today at 1 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Florida Roundup, a new set of presidents at state universities. At least half of the state universities will or have chosen new leaders in the past year. Many have political connections to Governor Ron DeSantis. What are the policies and politics in play when a state school gets a new president? Does your alma mater have a new leader? Email us radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then join us Friday noon until 1.
A federal court in Manhattan throws President Trump's trade policy into chaos. The White House calls it a coup. Elon Musk is done with Washington and says the GOP's mega bill undermined all the work done by Doge.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
Join us for the Friday News Roundup as we wrap up the biggest stories from the week, next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, from community building to kids and crafts, WJCT's Be My Neighbor Day has been an annual tradition since 2017. Here to tell us about this year's event on Saturday, June 7th, along with some other upcoming events here at WJCT, we are joined by Circe Lenoble. She's the Director of Grant Management and Community Events at WJCT Public Media. Good morning, Circe.
Good morning, Ann.
We are also joined by Karen Fagans, a well-known name and face around this joint, but now Vice President and Director of Client Community Relations at PNC Financial Services. Hey, Karen.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you. So you were here at WJCT during the Be My Neighbor Day era.
Yes.
And have been many years since, but it's also a project of PNC. Can you kind of talk about what it means to you personally, like what it is that appeals to you about the event?
Sure. Be My Neighbor Day. So I was here working at WJCT in 2017 for the first Be My Neighbor Day. I am a huge fan of Mr. Rogers and, of course, Daniel Tiger, who is the spinoff show of Mr. Rogers. So it's all based around that show and the concept of how to be a good neighbor. And so it's for kids in the preschool age to come together to learn from community members about how to be a good neighbor. So you might have the fire department here, and they learn about people who are supporting our community that way. At the PNC table, they're going to be building a great community. So every child will get a brick that they get to decorate and write on there, you know, how am I going to build a better community? And then they'll put that brick on a house that they all worked on together. And so those are the types of things that are happening, and it's so much fun for the kids. They get to see characters and have a good time, but they're also learning while they're here, and it's a wonderful experience.
And Circe, one of the things that you do is you create crafts, and the kids love making them, but some of them serve a purpose. They're not just like something to make and take home necessarily. Tell us about the placemats.
Absolutely. The placemats. It's a wonderful tradition that we've been doing for several years now, where we have attendees decorate a placemat, and then we get them laminated, and we take them to Almost Home Daybreak, which is a nonprofit in the area that has day services for the elderly with dementia.
Yeah, and so kids are thinking about the end recipient in ways when they're making this, and thinking about a way to kind of serve their community through this creative process.
Absolutely. In another kind of similar vein, we have them decorate bookmarks for themselves, but then we also share those bookmarks with an agency that helps people learn to read.
Yeah.
So, you know, they get something fun as well.
And it is a huge community event. So there are people like the firefighters, and you can check out the fire truck. But then there's, Daniel Tiger is here, and some of the characters that are most beloved PBS characters.
Yes, Daniel Tiger will be here, Miss Elena. I'm super excited that Carl the Collector, which is a new PBS Kids program, that Carl has autism. He will be here as well. And my favorite part of that show is he has a best friend, a little squirrel who has a nut allergy.
A little squirrel with a nut.
Yes. So, it's a wonderful community event. It's my favorite thing to do every year. And there's so much fun. Other agencies, that are joining us is the Florida Poison Control, Guardian Ad Litem. So it does teach children how to be good neighbors, but it also helps the parents learn how they can help as well or be served by these other agencies.
Sure. And it's an opportunity just to see how the operation works here. I mean, we're here at First Coast Connect. People can come in, they can put on the headphones and get on the mics and just sort of see how we do things here in the studio. So that's a ton of fun. That is on next Sunday. But you also have an event. Oh, next Saturday. I'm sorry. But the next week after that, there's also a big watch party?
No,
And the next day. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Cersei's busy.
We get it straight, Cersei.
I've got nothing to do.
Sunday, June 8th, there is a Tony watch party.
Yes.
Okay.
For the first time ever, we're having a Tony watch party. It's kind of my pet project.
This is Tony Awards for people
Tony
who
Awards.
aren't, Broadway conversant.
Sorry. Yeah, it's my pet project. It'll be great fun. We have local talent going to sing and perform for us. We're going to do the Tony ballot and have prizes, and we've got trivia. It's really been a family affair. My daughter's been writing trivia questions for months, and
fun.
my husband's been having some input because we're big theater goers. So.
Karen, this is kind of right up your alley because,
Yes.
Cersei, your family's a big theater goers too.
We are very excited about the Tonys for sure. So I love that WJCT is doing that. And, just both of these are great examples of the ways that WJCT gives back to the community. And, really proud that PNC is able to support Be My Neighbor Day and be a part of this, not only here in the Jacksonville community, but PNC supports it throughout the country.
Right. And it's a good reminder that, we talk a lot about serious stuff on this program, but there is so much fun stuff that is done at this station that really is about the community and making it a better place.
And, the other part of this Tony Watch Party is it happens to be the year that Great Performances is getting a Tony Honor of Excellence for their decades of support of Broadway and theater. And so it absolutely fits.
Look at all the ways public media touches our lives.
Exactly. And you can go to wjct.org/events to get your tickets for the Tony Watch Party.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here, Karen Fagan, Cersei Lenoble. Really appreciate it.
Thanks
you.
so
much.
All right. And thank you for listening. Please join us Monday. We're going to be talking about why it's taking so long to get a doctor's appointment these days. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Lawsuits involving strokes are complicated and require a special understanding of these life-changing events.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.